kahkaha, gönüller uçar. Birlikte şahiney, ne harika bir manzar. O hayatta olmaktan mutluyum. Her vuruşta neşeleniyoruz. Geniş ve berrak gökyüzünün altında bu anda.
As I prepared my thoughts prior to writing in my inscrito, the future capitulo, I couldn't keep from thinking about my beloved lynx. I saw her aura for 11 long months, during which I had to stifle my impatience to consummate our union. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, yet also the most rewarding, to fulfill the promise that Zacharias made to deity and assure the safety, health, and well-being of my people for another capitulo. As I reflect on this sacred duty, I am humbled and awed by the 89 prior kings of Estolia who were each able to keep the promise of Zacharias. Their unwavering dedication to our people serves as a testament to the enduring strength of Estolia's noble lineage. Tiernan Augustus Zakarian, Capitulo 90.
Geniş ve berrak gökyüzünün altında bu anda.
The sweet sound of a song in the language of Palmyra wafted from the back room to where Kahkaha sat in the outer room. Uriah was the extraordinary compensation for the life she now led. She closed her eyes and leaned back in the chair. Uriah's birth had been rough, and she knew without being told that her body would never quicken again. From the time she arrived in Palmyra, she was guided into a position of great power. Ganit took her in, claimed her child as his, though they had no ceremony to call themselves wed. Whenever she thought about Ganit, she felt sorrow at his death. He was probably the only man she would ever love, or who would ever love her. When they met, he had lived more than twice her own lifespan, but he had accepted her and her gifts from deity with equanimity. 8 years after her son's birth, Ganit started to fail. She used much of the healing lore she learned from her uncle Estrayon to try to ease his distress. Over time his condition deteriorated, and she knew he would not be with her for much longer.
Since I was a child,
He wheezed one night.
I've had a most difficult time with the lungs. I can tell that they will fail me very soon.
She sat by his side in their elevated bedchamber, kneeling on the soft sheepskin by their bed.
What can I do to soothe you?
She asked him. She had no remedies for this type of ailment.
The vial.
He said softly. She was transported in that instant to one of her most vivid memories. She was with Ganit 3 years, and young Uriah was already walking and talking, weaned and wanting to be a wizard someday, like his father. They were preparing the evening meal together, when the entrance to their home grew dark.
Is this the home of the Divinatra Kahkaha?
A gruff voice inquired. Kahkaha looked from the silhouette of the stranger to Ganit. She felt peculiar, as if danger was approaching. The expression on Ganit's craggy face was as implacable as ever, but the swift glance he spared her told her he felt it too.
Aye.
He said, affecting the crude speech of the coastal folk.
What be your need?
The man came deeper into the cavern, and Kahkaha recognized him. Duke Ortega's new advisor, Solier, a foreigner who had done little to solicit welcome from the townsfolk. The foreigner saw Kahkaha kneeling before their low table, setting out plates. His expression was familiar. The look of greed and lust on his face and in his eyes was reminiscent of Apollyon, imagining her beneath him as he rutted over her. She set the plate she was holding on the table and put her hand in her lap, clenching it in a fist, feeling the bite of her nails in the palm.
I've heard of Kahkaha's beauty.
The man said to Ganit.
I've come to barter for her services.
She knew beyond doubting that this man intended to have her, and did not mean to pay for the privilege.
Wench, pour us wine.
Ganit shocked her with the command. She looked at him, and saw something in his eyes that quelled her fear. He was not going to give her up to this man, no matter how willing he was to discuss the possibility. She nodded and rose to her feet, crossing swiftly to one of their few cupboards. With a glance at Gannet, she saw that he agreed with her selection of the Danieli wine. She uncorked the bottle and poured 2 small glasses, setting them out on the table. When she looked at Gannet, something seemed different about him. She did not try to puzzle it out at once because the foreigner crossed the room and touched her face. She stifled the desire to reach to the dagger she always kept concealed in a sheath on her inner thigh, and just looked at him. In the language of the northern continent, Solier said,
Indeed, you are as beautiful as I was told. I shall enjoy ploughing your curves.
He did not look over at Gannet. He met her eyes and asked,
This is Kahkaha?
Aye.
Gannet said.
And what be ye willing to give me for her?
His eyes lingered a moment longer before he turned back to Gannet, an expression of contempt only half concealed.
I have a pair of the large forest horses,
he said. Gannet looked out of the cavern to the 2 animals standing next to the saddled horse. He grunted and said,
Well then, let us drink to the trade.
With a glance at the pillows on the ground, Solier didn't bother sitting down. He took the wine and gulped it down, wiping the back of his hand across his mouth before reaching for Kahkaha's upper arm.
Touch me, and you die.
She said to him. He laughed and grabbed her arm. A moment later he staggered and then crashed to the ground. Gannet pulled her into his arms and held her as she trembled in reaction. Only once she calmed down did she look at Solier, dead, upon their floor.
I used the vial.
Gannet said. The vial? That was what was different about his appearance. The small glass vial, suspended from a slender golden chain about his neck, was gone. She had asked about it, and he had stated that it was how he kept himself safe. Now, she knew, he kept a poison within. He gave her a similar vial when he promised to care for her all the days of his life.
The only antidote,
He told her.
is the oil of Mayberry.
They had discussed the poison, the antidote, and their future on that evening so long ago. Other townsfolk had come at Gannet's bidding, and it did not take long to prepare the foreigner so that his death would be explained. He was found, drowned, on the evening tide, and his body returned solemnly to the Duke. Later, Gannet taught her how to create the poison and how to fashion the vial using the cache of pure sand he kept in the depths of their cavern. As the mists of that memory cleared, Kahkaha's eyes focused on Gannet's. She could see the wisdom and intelligence in his eyes. He understood what he was asking of her. If she did as he asked, she would be alone. Uriah would be left without Gannet's influence to help him.
Reach within yourself, Kahkaha.
He wheezed.
You know this is the right choice, that you and your son will both flourish in my absence, even more than in my presence. Reach for your deity and accept what you are told.
The warmth of confirmation by deity swept over her body. She was not sure about her future, but she knew that this was the most profound kindness she could give the man she took as a mate. After a nod of acceptance, she pulled the thin gold chain over her head, pulling the tiny purple vial up and into her hand. She stared down at it. Holding it tightly in her fist, she fought down the emotions of impending loss that were swamping her.
It is time, sweet Kahkaha. Recall the certainty with which you see the future. Know that we will be blessed to be together again in your Tarizan.
She broke the wax seal on the vial before pulling the small cork from within it. Handing it over to him, she smiled at him, wanting his memory of her to be of a beautiful, proud woman with strength. He gave her his lopsided grin and then grimaced in pain. He sighed softly and then tipped the vial into his mouth. Handing the vial back to her, he said,
Rinse it thrice, then fill it with the Mayberry oil.
He seemed ready to say more, but he was gone. So fast, so peaceful.
Neşe yanımda